I mean, we're robbing you over here, right? But on climate change, hey, we're so honest about it. Stealing billions over here, but hey, trust us, we have to have equity. That's the only way to fix our social problems. Welcome back to the Professor Penn podcast on this Thursday night, February 13th, for episode number 182, Violence. Violence, yes. Yes, indeed, violence. The refuge of the scoundrel. At the start of every podcast, because I'm doing this with intent, yes, I'm going to be entertaining and provide information. That's very important. But we have a political agenda. Now let's look at what's going on here. The Democrats are getting routed. They don't even know how to respond. They appear to me to be clownish in their response. You know, I remember when Donald Trump put the 25% tax on China in 2018. There was a back and forth. You might remember it. He put on 10, and the Chinese came back and put on 10, and then he expanded it to more. There was one tranche, two tranche, three tranche. It went on and on. And what he did was he took the Chinese, who had smiled and appeared to be our friends. Of course, I'd pulled out in 2015 because, you know, I'd been going there a lot. Pulled back, not completely got out of it, but as much as I could. He pulled their face off and their fangs came out and everybody went, whoa, those folks are not our friends. They're fighting back. We had this idea that we could work things out with the Chinese. You know, there was a cooperation. We were all in it together for one peaceful world. Excuse me. And then Donald Trump put a little pressure on them, and they came out fighting. And everybody knows that they were revealed. Well, it's very similar. This Doge effort where he has turned Elon Musk loose as a consultant to start looking through these records. And again, like the last episode, innocent until proven guilty. But Elon came out yesterday and said Friday, Valentine's Day, he's going to bring the receipts, a reference to Steve Bannon. Very cool. And everybody's looking at, well, not everybody, but I'm looking at these Democrats, these communists, and I'm going, whoa, you people are falling short. And I thought about this last night. I was laying in bed, and I'm thinking, I got off the bench in 2020, right after the election. And I immediately called Dan Schultz because I'd seen him on War Room quite frequently talking about the precinct strategy. And I like to go right to the top. And I said, Dan, tell me all about it. And of course, he's getting calls all day long. This guy's running a national strategic effort in all the states. And I know what that's like. He's getting all these calls from all these people, and everybody wants to talk to him about this, that, thus, and so. And what he wants to talk about is get involved in your party so we can get the Republican Party actually devoted to the philosophy of republicanism, because we got half the members really are Democrats. Some of them don't even know they're Democrats, but they are, because it's not what they say, it's what they do. Like Mitch McConnell yesterday voting against Tulsi Gabbard. He voted with a Democrat. He's a Democrat. And I called Dan and he got me organized, and I'd never done any local politics. I'd never done any podcasting. I'd never had any interest politically. But the situation was so dire, so extremely out of control, in my opinion, that I was willing to give everything I had to save, for me, a country where you could have faith in God. That was my motivator. Yours can be different. It could be love of country. It could be love of family. It could be love of freedom. But there was something that motivated each one of us, even to be here in this podcast space, which is still a very small audience. And I want to thank you for reposting the links and telling your friends. And there's shorts coming through now that Tanner, good morning, Tanner.
Good morning, David.
Tanner's running shorts through, which you can very easily repost that. That's driving up our engagement tremendously. But I got involved. I became an officer of the Republican Party of Minnesota. And I had a call for 3 months. They wouldn't even call me back. I had to threaten to sue them to get a call back. And I got onto a board and I became an officer and I became a member of the state central committee and on it went. And now I am very viable here in Minnesota. Now, I've said this on the podcast, and for those in my district in the state who are listening, I did resign from SD 45. Denise Plekish was my chairwoman. I was the deputy chair. She is the wife of Minnesota GOP chair Alex Plekish. And I resigned because the board had become so corrupted. There were so many allegations of fraud, financial malfeasance. There was a fist fight in the boardroom. And I was working on the Royce White campaign. I had nothing to do at all with the way that, I was stunned. And the two people that got in a fight, they were both friends of mine. And there was 3 active allegations, cases that had to get sorted out. The board chairwoman, Denise, should have recused herself. She didn't do it. There was threats of lawsuits. And, I would have stayed in there and sorted that out as my sacred honor, my responsibility, under the circumstances that the board actually did something Republican, like was effective. And I thought to myself, it's going to take so much time to sort this out. My friends are fighting each other. What's going to be the result after I sort it out? A bunch of people that are going to have a meeting once a month and do nothing. And they hold caucus, they hold convention, but as far as spreading Republicanism, actually working, they were not into that. And they're volunteers, and I get that. But I wasn't going to devote 3 months of my life with all these egos and problems. So I resigned. But for those of you that follow me, I did send an email to the constabulary there a couple days ago, and I have thrown my hat in the ring to run for chairman of the SD 45 board. And, people and they're going to ask me when I go to the board, and they've said this to me, why don't you do things nationally? And I do have the opportunity to do things nationally, and I turn that down because politics is local. All politics is ultimately local. We, the people, control this entire process if we just get involved. How we do it? Well, 9 p.m. tomorrow night, Friday night, 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central, X spaces, go to X, write this down or put a note down. Please, I'm going to pause, grab a pencil, please, because I'd like 100 people to show up tomorrow from this audience at Dan Schultz 2, at Dan Schultz 2, 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central. I will be there. I come every Friday night. We're starting to get like Laura. Thank you for coming. We're getting people coming from Minnesota. And thank you. That's very important because this is a place where we can go to rally American citizens and help them get involved in their local parties. And for those of you in Minnesota that know me, a lot of people don't like me because, they don't. Great. Guess what, the people that don't like me? I was talking this thing when President Trump looked like he was going to jail. When Alex Plekish called me and said, would you work against Alex? Alex actually said this to me. He called me. This is a personal testimony. Try to lie your way out of this one. Please work against Donald Trump. Can I have your commitment? What? That's not up to me. My job as a Republican Party officer, in my opinion, is to help every American citizen in Minnesota enter the party. I don't have a litmus test like these rhinos to make sure they think like me. If a rhino wants to come in the party and they meet with me and I'm an officer, I'm going to help them in. I'm going to show them how it works. I'm going to tell them the whole story. We need unity. We need people in the party because it should be evident now that the game is changing. We need unity. I will unify with every person that puts the Republican label on themselves because the unity that we're seeking is no longer over here with these neocon war hawks, as we're going to talk about just in a minute. We're moving the unity into republicanism. And there's nothing these professionals can do, because if they don't come along for the ride, they're going to lose their job in show business. And because they're professionals and they lack any moral center or any principles, they'll just come along and participate, which is great. We need people like that. We need people to stand up and just salute the flag. But it's we, the people, that are going to drive the process if we get involved. Now, let me tell you, this is my opinion. We'll lose here if you don't get involved. If you don't do this, if you got something better to do than save your country is going to go down the toilet. We are not out of the woods. All we've done is reveal the top waters. What's a top water? It's a fish at the top of the lake that you don't want to catch. It's a top water. It's a little fish. The swamp creatures, oh, they're coming now. The sharks, we are going to run into them now. Starting this week, we're going to talk about that tonight. So please come to the meeting. Please get ready to get involved. Anybody can contact me at support@tireget.com. Write this one down too, because I'll respond to you. Support@tireget.com. Those of you that make comments in the YouTube channel, I generally answer them, as you know. And I appreciate so much. Come to X. Form that digital army. When you repost these links to the shorts, to the podcast, that's the only advertising we're getting. And we're still generating a bigger and bigger audience. Every show is the biggest show we've ever had. That's because the content is motivating people to share it. And right here in Minnesota, and in your state too, you can join me. I was on the John Fredericks Radio Network yesterday with a bunch of people from Georgia that are doing the exact same thing in Georgia that I'm doing, and I'm sure Dan knows every one of those people. And I'm going to get those names and share them with Dan. He goes, oh yeah, I got them into the party. It's that kind of a deal. We just need a few strategic players in every market to get this job done. Because that's what I was thinking about. Man, in 2020, Elon Musk was not involved. Donald Trump looked like he was going to jail. Peter Navarro and Steve Bannon both got indicted. Both of them went to jail. It looked like it was the end, right? But there was players that got involved. You know, people that had other things to do, like making money and chasing their dreams, chasing their American dream. I put it down. I said, there's nothing more important than saving this republic. And that happened all over the country. It didn't take many people. Look where we're at. Now, some heavyweight come in. And why did Elon Musk come in? They messed with him when he bought Twitter. There's something like 38 federal investigations that the Biden administration opened up on Elon Musk and his companies. Hey, you know what? They messed with the wrong dude. So he came in, and Lutnick came in, and Besson came in. And in every state, players came in, and, you know, we're smashing these people now. They don't know what to do. They're without a legitimate and reasoned response. That's why it is my opinion they are going to resort to violence. Could you please play number one?
Privileged billionaires who don't give a damn about America and Americans should not be making decisions that put Americans at harm.
We have got to tell Elon Musk, nobody elected your.
We will see you in the courts, in Congress, in the streets. Elon Musk is a Nazi Nepo baby.
I am going to stand with you in this fight, and we will win. We will win.
We will fight their violations of our Constitution of the United States of America. We will not shut up. We will stand up. We will speak up.
So this is where we're at right now. When you don't have a logical, reasonable response, when you lose your ability to discourse with eloquence, you can stand up and say, we'll see you in the streets, like Ayanna Pressley said. Hakeem, the wise one, Jeffries, I alluded to this on the last podcast, released on February 3rd his 10-point plan for defeating Donald Trump. You can go see it for yourself online, but I do want to highlight some of the high points because there, even his 10-point plan it's flimsy, right? I have made clear to House Republican leadership that any effort to steal taxpayer money from the American people and Medicaid as we know it, or to fund programs important to everyday Americans, must be choked off in the upcoming government funding bill, which we're going to talk about shortly, which means that every single Democrat will be opposing President Trump's agenda. Legislation will be introduced shortly to prevent unlawful access to the Department of Treasury Bureau of Fiscal Services that contain highly confidential and personal information related to Social Security and Medicare recipients, taxpayer households, and nonprofits. In other words, the audit's going to expose you to fraud. It's laughable. He's going to partner with the Democrat Policy and Communication Committee to continue to highlight Republican policies that raise the already high cost of living. We're going to talk about that. They're going to blame the inflation that goes back to 2000 and Bush, this whole globalist run. They're going to blame it on President Trump. We're going to talk about that a lot tonight. This is going to be a very detailed dive into the economics of where we're at tonight. This is why we have to get into stuff. Got to get involved, man. I mean, and women, just got to get involved. Litigation efforts to combat unlawful executive actions. They've unleashed the hounds of lawfare. Listen to this one. Here's a complete BS one. Catherine Clark, who's a superstar in the Democrat Party, she's the House Minority Whip. She's the counterpart of Tom Emmer, who's the House Majority Whip. She's going to lead a caucus-wide effort and bring in outside experts to enhance the ability to unpack and expose recently uncovered Republican schemes to rip off the American taxpayer. I mean, they're just making stuff up. We'll skip this one. Here's a funny one. Democrats will continue to detail for the American people how federal funds are being stolen or at the risk of being stolen in the aftermath of the successful effort to halt the administration's illegal so-called freeze by the Office of Management and Budget. They froze the funds because they were getting stolen, and these people are alleging that they froze them to steal them. This is politics, right? It's politics. It's not real. It's theater. But, it's theater Royce White says that people take their politics with their French fries. Politics is fast food. And when you get fast food consumers, hey, the wise one is perfect for those people. They're going to battle the GOP's scheme to cut taxes. Here's a great one. Our ongoing public safety accountability project. Their public safety accountability project will continue to detail the threat presented by violent felons who have been pardoned by Donald Trump and released back into the neighborhoods throughout the country. The J6, the handful, there's 10, 15, 20 million people that the Biden administration released in the country, and this guy's talking about a handful of knuckleheads that got swept up in the J6 arrests. It's just unbelievable. These people are shameless. That's why I say their ideological framework, it's collapsed. And lastly, we will urge all members to once again conduct district-wide outreach as soon as possible this week in order to connect directly with our constituents. Well, I'm all for that. Get out into the street and figure out how much these people hate you. That'll help a lot. So they're getting ready to unleash the dogs of war. Let's listen to number 2.
I promise to fight every single day. One, I'm a fighter and I'm relentless, but I'm a fighter and I'm relentless. A fighter and I'm relentless. I will fight like hell.
But the way I see it now is that we pick ourselves up and we fight back. That's what I think it's all about. We stand up and we fight back. We do not back down. We do not compromise, not today, not tomorrow, not ever. You can either lie down, you can whimper, you can pull up in a ball, you can decide to move to Canada, or you can stand your ground and fight back. And that's what it's about. We do fight back, but we are going to fight back. We are not turning this country over to what Donald Trump has sold. We are just not. Look, people are upset, and they're right to be upset. Now, we can whimper, we can whine, or we can fight back. Me, I'm here to fight back. I'm here to fight back because we will not forget. We do not want to forget. We will use that vision to make sure that we fight harder, we fight tougher, and we fight more passionately than ever. We still have a fight on our hands. Fight hard for the changes Americans are demanding. Get in the fight, to winning the fight, fighting. He's fighting. We'll use every tool possible to fight for this change. We'll fight to fight fighting hard. Serious. We fight back. I'm in this fight. I am fighting. Get in this fight. Get in this fight. Get in this fight. And fighting, we all need to be in the fight. We all need to stay in the fight. We stay in this fight. We fought back. I am not afraid of a fight. I am in this fight all the way. You don't get what you don't fight for. Our fight. We are in this fight for our lives. This is the fight of our lives.
But we are going to make sure that this fight does not end tonight.
This is a fight for our lives, the lives of our friends and family members and neighbors. It is a fight, and it is a fight that we're going to work to make sure continues. It's a fight. It is a fight. It is a fight, and that's what this fight is for.
Well, I'm wired to fight anyone who isn't doing their job for us. I'm John Tester, and you're damn right. I approve this message.
And I'll have lots of fights ahead of us, and I'm ready to stand up and keep fighting. We have to fight. We're going to fight. We're going to fight. We need to fight, and we need to fight. We're going to fight. We got a few more fights. We're going to take the privilege of a few more fights, and we have the biggest fight of all. I will never stop fighting. I will fight like hell to fight back against anyone.
We need to say loud and clear that we are ready to fight.
It's a bare-knuckles fight.
Now they're going to have to actually fight back against people.
The fight has
I think we got the point, don't we? That kind of language, thoughts matter, what we think. Words are things. They call it, Bruce Lee said something I liked. He said they call it spelling because you're casting a spell. This is a way of programming people to fight. And they're calling Donald Trump, a Nazi, Hitler. So they're getting people really spun up, and things are, it's cold. And let me just say, speaking of cold, we're up here in Minnesota. Those of us who are in Minnesota, we got Keith Ellison here, Amy Klobuchar, Tina Smith, Tim Waltz. Ilhan Omar. This is a center of Democrat, communist infiltration. You got California, Illinois, New York, and Minnesota. We're going to beat these people here. And if you're watching me and you're a leftist, yeah, we're coming. We're going to take a constitutional process. We're going to have a constitutional process and investigations that is going to reveal the fraud that is going here in Minnesota, the same as it is going on allegedly nationally. We're going to look for it right here in Minnesota. And if we find that fraud, if we find that the Minnesota taxpayer is getting robbed, as we think maybe the federal level is going on, we are going to let the Minnesota citizens decide if they can believe people who are stealing money from us at an intergalactic level, but trust us on climate change. I mean, we're robbing you over here, right? But on climate change, hey, we're so honest about it. You know, we're stealing billions over here, but hey, trust us, we have to have equity because that's the only way to fix our social problems. See, when we get these people in this kind of a corner, we're in the box canyon where they're liars. They lose their credibility. When they lose their credibility, the program that they've been selling, the con, the trick that they've been working on us, the marks, is going to collapse. It's called ideological collapse. And we're going to get into the news that matters, but I wanted to comment on one other thing. These people are traumatized. I mean, they're intergenerationally traumatized. We all are. I think about how I treated my kids. My kids listen, probably get 5 phone calls. I think about how my parents treated me. I'm not talking about necessarily physical or sexual abuse, although that's a part of many people's lives. But we are living in a very unnatural kind of way for who we are as biological organisms. And we get traumatized. We get traumatized, every one of us, from birth. And then we get to a certain age and we start to foist that trauma on other people. I'm just going to share that if we wish to be beautiful, we are. If we wish to heal, we will. We do not have to hate each other, rob each other, and degrade this great republic because all of us have suffered. We just have to bring an end to that. And you're going to say, well, how do you do that? Well, okay. Each of us in our own unique way. It's our responsibility to heal the country. So, I see beauty where other people see disease. I see hope where other people see hopelessness. Because with God, all things are possible. And I think the most important thing that we can understand is that we are living in a country that allows us to have redemption, and our philosophy of republicanism, it really does allow us to grow as human beings. And if we remove our addiction to sin, which in Latin means separation, it's a separation of man and woman from the search for truth. We sin because we're wounded. I mean, we're wounded. We try to fill that wound. I have spent a lifetime trying to fill that wound with various deadly sins, all kinds of them. And I got to an age I'm thinking, man, I'm missing the point of this whole trip. So I say with all my heart, forgive me my sins, O Lord. Forgive me my sins, the sins of my youth, the sins of my age, the sins of my soul and the sins of my body, my idle sins, my serious voluntary sins, the sins I know, the sins I have concealed so long and which are now hidden from my memory. I am truly sorry for every sin, mortal and venial, for all the sins of my childhood up to the present hour. I know my sins have wounded thy tender heart. O my Savior, let me be freed from the bonds of evil through the most bitter passion of my Redeemer. Jesus, forget and forgive what I have been. Amen. Born again in the philosophy of republicanism, where we give over to each other and having a community where we love our neighbor as we wish to be loved. And President Trump promised that he would end the war in the Ukraine, and I know you've seen that. He's engaged now with President Putin, and they are going to exchange state visits. There will be a peace conference, and this war is going to come to an end. And once again, the globalists like Michael McFaul, different globalists that I see on X, their heads are blowing off because, oh my gosh, Trump must be on Putin's payroll. Putin must have something on Trump. No, you people are just dumb. You don't know your history. What has happened in this war, which there's 180 episodes, and I do believe that the United States government caused it. Now, I would have preferred that Putin didn't invade Ukraine, but we stepped on his blue suede shoes for so many decades, and we're trying to make him into a Hitler. They're like he's going to take over all of Europe. The Soviet Union tried that, and they couldn't sustain it. They're not going to fall in that trap again. They just want to develop their country and have a healthy and well-being culture. They've renounced communism. They're now a Christian country. And, if we're wrong, we can have a nuclear war downstream. Right now, President Trump is going to bring about peace. And the globalists are so gum-dipped into this British history, this world island theory, this, Mackinder theory, which we've talked about, that they really want to conquer Russia to control the world island. And also they just want that $100 trillion of minerals. These people are greedy. They don't want Russia to stand up. Russia has the kind of resources that makes Russia a powerful ally. And when I say ally, this is what these people don't get. And it's really not that complicated. When I share it with you, you're going to get it like that. In 1972, Henry Kissinger made a secret trip to Beijing, was Peking at the time, and met with Chairman Mao and Zhou Enlai, who was the number 2 in that dictatorship. His goal was to weaken the bonds between Russia and China and to break up their coordination so that they were less able to pursue their worldwide socialist aims. And he promised the Chinese inclusion in Western markets. And they were off on this venture of bringing the Chinese into the deal. And that's how this globalism really got going. You know what Trump is doing? Trump is looking at this, he's going, who's the real threat here? Who really is, pernicious to the United States of America? Can't say it out loud. Says, although he goes, President Xi and I are friends. And you know what? That's cool. You keep your friends close and your enemies closer. We don't want to have war with the Chinese. And I'll tell you, the Chinese don't want to have war with us. They want to beat us without firing a single shot. And they're very good at it. And this war has driven an alliance between Russia and China and Iran, which is called the Iron Triangle, because it can never be broken. And what President Trump is doing, and I think very insightfully, is he is offering Putin a re-entry into the Western world, the Christian world. There's great enmity historically between the Chinese and the Russians. They don't get along all the time. And so what President Trump is doing is kind of doing a reverse Kissinger. Kissinger lured the Chinese away from the Russians. Now President Trump is going to lure the Russians away from the Chinese. It's a great strategy. It's the kind of strategy that lessens geopolitical tensions, because if people are isolated, if he isolates the Chinese, they're going to have to be more cooperative. Right now, they have aggregated all this power into their bloc because of the globalists being willing to die on the hill of the Ukraine. Trump is saying, hey, you're an ideologue, fixed position. It's like all the hardcore patriots in the Republican constituency that won't work the rhinos. Right now, we got to work with them because we have to defeat the communists. So this is what President Trump is saying. Yeah, okay, great. I got a problem. I got to weaken this alliance so that we can bring about peace. We have to align ourselves as Republicans so we can finish off these communists. We are in a wrestling match. If you think that the game ever stops, well, hey, it might when Let that day come when the game stops. But that's not today. So we're going to have to be pragmatic. That's what President Trump has shown us. He's been very pragmatic about this. And breaking that iron triangle is really the goal of his geopolitics. And I'm going to show you and we played this on the last one, but it's worth playing again because the Iranians, they're in trouble. Please play number 3.
The United States on Thursday dropped a massive non-nuclear bomb on what the Pentagon said was an Islamic State tunnel complex in Afghanistan. The bomb is called a GBU-43/B Massive Ordnance Air Blast, but it's also known as the mother of all bombs, and it has never been used in combat before. The bomb contains 10 tons of high explosives and is so large it has to be dropped from the rear of a cargo plane. A handful of similar bombs have been used by the U.S. before to destroy caves believed to be hideouts of the Taliban and Al-Qaeda. Thursday's strike targeted an area near the Pakistan border. It was unclear whether any militants or civilians were killed. President Trump briefly addressed the strike at the White House.
Very, very proud of the people. Really another successful job.
Did you authorize it, sir?
Everybody knows exactly what happened, and what I do is I authorize my military. We have the greatest...
The 21,500-pound bomb includes a satellite guidance system to help it get closer to its target instead of just dropping unguided. It detonates 6 feet above the ground, sending a wave of fire that obliterates everything within a 1,000-yard radius. The Air Force developed the Moab in 2002 and 2003 as part of the Iraq War's shock and awe strategy. It produced 14 of these bombs, 2 of which were shipped to the Persian Gulf. But by the time they arrived, officials decided they no longer needed to deploy such massive force.
Isn't that something? Well, they're shipping these off to Israel along with another $7 billion of arms. We'll put that up when it appears in the Federal Register. And what President Trump is, he's breaking up this iron triangle. And they didn't ship these off to Israel for show and tell. So I think Iran is, if you looked in the news yesterday, there was hundreds of thousands of Iranian citizens in the streets calling for an end to the regime because those citizens know where they're headed. This is very, very serious. I don't advocate for this kind of violence, but you can see from what's happening in Gaza, the word around the campfire is that's enough of this tomfoolery. People want to move on from this. So the first step is to pull Russia back into the Western orb, isolate China with Iran, then smoke the Iranians, and the Chinese are standing there by themselves. They'll want to be peaceful and do business. That's President Trump's strategy, in my opinion. And it really goes right into our economy. We're going to spend the next 45 minutes talking about what's going on politically, the economy, and trade. And I got some great feedback after the last episode. Hey, Professor Penn, you're not very linear sometimes. Okay, that's true. But I can be, and I'm going to try to be more linear tonight because these are very important issues. And I do get the feedback. And it surprised me. Like I was out last night with a banker, an accountant, and a lawyer. And I started talking about the Fed, and all 3 of them glazed over. They have no idea. It's an accountant, a lawyer, and a banker. I mean, these people are professionals, right? They don't know how things work. We don't know how things work, and we have to. If we're going to change this, we have to know how they work. So please repost the links. I want to thank the people that are going to tireget.com. It's a great deal. We need the support. The Free People Store, we're going to expand that. There's people that are on a subscription service, which I didn't even know because I'm really starting to think about Free People Radio as a business for the first time. We started it. It took me a year to figure out how to podcast. Then we did the Senate campaign. I'm coming up for air. We're losing our ass financially. I said, this is a business. We got to at least break even. And I looked in for the first time into the bank, and I got all these people that are donating money through locals every month. And I want to thank you. Now, it's $5 a month, $10 a month, $20 a month. It's so appreciated that people would value the content of Free People Radio, what Royce and I are doing here, so much that you would subscribe. And we're going to produce premium material for those people down the road. We really want to encourage people to support this content any way you can. So thank you. Target being the primary driver. We're even going to talk about tires here in a minute. That's an area of some expertise for me. Now, the economy. Can you put up this, Tanner, this picture of the federal debt? This is quite an interesting picture. The first spike happened during the Great World War II, when our country was deployed all over in the world in a battle for survival, allegedly a battle of necessity. At least that's what the history books tell us. And there was 500,000 Americans that died in that war. 88 million people died in 5 years. And you can see that the country went deep into debt to finance that war. And you say, well, how does that debt work? Well, we're going to talk about that. But then look just downstream, which is right now, and our current federal debt exceeds that during a world war, and we're in peacetime with an expanding economy. So you have to say to yourself, okay, how could this happen? And, the conventional wisdom is they're kicking the can down the road. That's not true. That's a cover-up story. And as we look more and more at the fraud and the robbing and the things that are going on, innocent until proven guilty, but if it is true, we're going to find out that we, the people, have been used like a piggy bank, like slaves, serfs. The national debt is over 100% of the GDP. It's up from 36% of GDP in 2005. There's never been a debt, a sovereign debt, that has ever been paid back in the history of the world that exceeded 100% of GDP. So we are in uncharted territory, maybe because we're human beings with a survival, we have a survival instinct. Maybe we knew we were standing at the edge of the cliff, so we elected a businessman who rolled in with a bunch of business people and replaced a bunch of professional politicians who can't even run to the bathroom. The one guy, he couldn't even run to the bathroom. He couldn't make it to the bathroom. He couldn't run to the bathroom, let alone run the largest economy in the world. And that's who we had running the country. And now these leftists are blaming President Trump for inflation 3 weeks into his administration. And this is a problem that goes back decades, because inflation is about the money supply. And deficit and debt expands the money supply without any creativity, without any work, without any productivity. It's just financialization so that they can keep this scam moving along. And we're out at the edge of the tether cord. We're going to talk about how they do it here too. And I'm going to try to be a little bit more linear, but let's get some facts under our belts. This year, the interest payment, because, we owe this money. That'd be us. You, Tanner, me, we owe this money. This almost $37 trillion. The interest payment on this debt is now exceeding $1 trillion. In our budget, which there's an argument right now, today, there's a new set of legislative agendas that are going to come forth. You're going to hear everything about it, which is including President Trump's legislative initiatives. There's one bill, two bills. We don't know how it's going to come down. We're going to watch the sausage get made. There's two kinds of spending. There's discretionary spending and there's mandatory spending. Discretionary spending is only 25% of what our government spends, which is $6 trillion a year. 3/4 of that $6 trillion is mandatory. And what is mandatory? Well, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and paying the interest on the debt. So that is a variable. See, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, not too variable. Now, we could, by, I don't know, identifying fraud in those three systems, probably cut hundreds of billions of dollars out of those expenditures. I mean, based on what we're seeing from the Doge effort, and Elon says he's bringing the receipts, bring them. Let's see it. And I mean, if you've been to the doctor, you know that is full of whatever you want to call it. Let's just call it, it's a very expensive system right now with declining benefits for the citizens. Maybe down the road, they'll say, hey, this is a little fraudulent in here. And if you follow, I remember I've got one of the people in my office, one time I was talking to her about judges being bribed. She said, that never happens. I said, are you saddle drunk? I said, just put in your browser, judges, bribes. There was like 1 million web pages. She looked at me, she said, I didn't know that happened. Well, that's a little bit like doctors and Medicare. There's a lot of fraud in there. Did you know there's a lot of fraud in the system? Huh?
You got to stop with these rhetorical questions.
I do?
Yeah.
I just
all I
wanted-
can say is yes. Yeah.
No,
I've
but
been
I'm
here.
asking you, do you know there's fraud in the medical system?
Oh,
Does
yeah.
you-
That's what we've been talking about.
Okay, but I'm saying, when I speak to you, I'm speaking to you as a representative of young people.
Oh, as young people? Yeah, I doubt it. I don't know.
See?
I see a lot of, yeah, I see what you mean then.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, I know you're
Okay,
hanging.
I see what you're saying.
Tanner's
now.
hanging with me every day. He's getting a good dose of this, but I mean, I'm really using him because, I mean, I don't have, he's 25, right?
Yeah.
25. I mean, I don't hang around with that many 25 years old. I got my kids. My kids aren't thinking about any of this stuff. My kids, 25, they couldn't give a rip about any of this. And I am trying to get them involved in politics. They have no interest. They're leaving it up to me and up to you.
Yeah.
But there's fraud in this medical system. So we don't know how much it could be cut, but that interest on that debt, that is a variable that expands or contracts based on the interest rate that debt is held at. So if the interest rate is lower, the payment on that debt is lower. When the interest rate is higher, those payments expand. Ooh, something to think about. But in 2028, which is just downstream, the projection from the government is that there will be about $1.4 trillion paid just on that interest. Ooh. Now, here's a great one for you, and you're going to say, how could this be happening? In the next 2 years of the $36.5 trillion of debt, $13.4 trillion of that debt has to be refinanced because Janet Yellen, if you remember that kind-looking old lady with the white hair, screwed us either by accident or on purpose. I don't know. I don't know if it was ill-intended or incompetent. Can't tell. Not in her head. She's a communist. Maybe she's in the Cloward and Piven model. Let's use the debt to break the country, the interest payments. But when this tremendous amount of debt that was run up under the Biden administration was financed through borrowing, it was done on a very short-term basis. Very short term. So there's almost up $13.4 trillion, almost $14 trillion of that $37 trillion that have to be refinanced right now. And what's happened is the interest rate is way up. Why is that? Because inflation's way up. And you say, how are these things related? We're going to talk about it. I'm setting up the conversation. Unbelievable. The Federal Reserve sets the short-term borrowing rate. So right now, it's anticipated that by the end of this year, it'll be about 3.4%. It was at one point during the COVID period, 0. Money had no value. Because when you say there's no interest rate, it's free. I mean, and nothing's free. We're paying for it now. So when you're starting to talk about this interest rate, the average interest cost of that $13 trillion is 2.2%, but it looks like it's going to have to be refinanced at a much higher rate, which is going to expand those debt payments in the mandatory part of our budget. Now, setting up the conversation, a budget is being proposed. There's discretionary spending. There's a desire to maintain the Trump tax cuts. There's all this mandatory spending. And when you add it all up, it looks like the Trump budget is going to cost between now and 2034 another $4 trillion added on to the debt. And everybody's going to go, oh, that's crazy. And it is. But there's a very incomplete picture here. And it'll be very interesting to watch this sausage get ground. Because as I was saying in the last podcast, we have these ideologues in the House, the Chip Roys, the Thomas Masseys, that group, the House Freedom Caucus, which they've taken a very principled stand. We're never going to vote for a debt ceiling increase. And they never do. But when you only have a 2-vote margin and you're going to have a lockstep Democrat caucus in opposition, if these guys don't vote for this, this is going to go down the tubes. So it'll be very interesting to watch the infighting within the Republican caucus. We know what the Democrats are going to do. They're going to stand up and say the American people are being robbed. It's a giveaway to wealthy people, and et cetera, and so on. This is what I think is going to go down. I don't know how this sausage is going to get ground up, but it really goes into the idea of trade. And there's going to be a lot of cutting of the budget due to this waste, fraud, and abuse effort, which has never happened before in my lifetime at this kind of a level. But the Congress only is involved in part of this. And I don't know what the communication level is between the administration and these House Freedom Caucus members. No idea. But this now is only half the story, because President Trump is setting up a completely alternative system of raising money. So let us say that the budget passes just the way Speaker Johnson has presented it, and it just came out yesterday. I've downloaded it. I'm going to read it before I see you next week. It's not very long, interestingly. Like when the Democrat puts forth a budget, it's like 1,500 pages long. This thing's like 30 pages. You can read it, I can read it, and we can understand it together. And we need to, because we need an informed and just populace to maintain a republic, because we're self-governing. But there's a whole other system of money raising that's being created, and that's tariffs. And we started talking about that last time. And I asked Tanner, did I do a good job? And he gave me, I think, like a C+. So I want to take another bite at this apple, because I am an importer and I've been doing it for a long time. And for those of you that are tuning in for the first time, and there's a lot of new viewers, I was at one time an unrepentant globalist. I've been to China almost 200 times. I was there in 1993. That's not long after Henry Kissinger opened the place to trade. I was there when there was no cars. Everybody was on foot or a bicycle. They were asking me, like, how do we do this? They had no idea what they were doing. They've been very fast learners. They're very organized, and they're very good business people, and they're brutal about making money. Brutal. They are tough competitors. In other words, your average Democrat can't hang with the Chinese. As a matter of fact, it's taken me many years to understand how to deal in that realm myself. I have tried to disconnect myself from imported tires as much as I can. But in the consumer tire business, as I've said, only 20% of the consumer tires, the tires that go on your vehicles, When you go to Target, only 20% of those tires are actually manufactured in the United States. 4 out of 5 tires are imported. So when I try to go with an America First only strategy for my company, I'm guaranteeing myself bankruptcy because you don't want to pay the price for an American-made tire because they can be double the price or more of an imported tire. And what's happened is the Chinese, because it's mostly Chinese-produced product that comes in, they have analyzed. People say they're stealing it, right? And they didn't steal it. We gave it to them. We taught them how to make these tires when they had smiles on their faces because there's regulatory compliance. There is competing on quality. And, I know a lot about this. Do this, do that. And pretty quick, it took them about, I don't know, in 20 years, their tires are as good as Michelin's and for a third of the price. So when you go to the tire store and the tire salesman or you come to TireGate, you call me, and I say this to people. When you call in, I'll say, I'm not telling you what to do. I'm not judgmental about it. You can buy an American-made tire, but actually, even if you buy an American-made tire, I really can't guarantee it's made in America because those big name brands, they're building tires all over the world. You could buy 4 name brand tires, and one's made in, let's say, North Carolina. They're all the same tire now. Same tread design, same name of the tire. One could be made in North Carolina, one could be made in Mexico, one could be made in Costa Rica, and another one could come from Canada. So you could have 4 tires, they're all the same, everything's the same brand, same tread design, come from 4 different countries. So it's very difficult even to tell people that they're buying American when they're asking to buy American. That's where we've slipped down this rope to. We're at the last knot where the whole tire business is going to leave the country. And President Trump doesn't want that. So this high-quality, low-cost import tire dominates the tire business, and this has gone on in every industry. There isn't a single industry that doesn't have this same characteristic where low-cost imports have undercut domestic manufacturing. And you say, well, why is that? Well, let's say it again. Our union members are paid tremendous wages in comparison to people who are doing the same job in other parts of the world. There's no comparison. We have national health care, Obamacare. You got to pay for that. We have the EPA, OSHA, environmental regs. We've got local issues, land issues. It is so expensive to manufacture here in the United States as compared with other countries because we've created that as our lifestyle. It's not right, wrong, or indifferent. It's just the way it is. And then you get to the currency part of it. Okay, so we talked about high cost of manufacturing, which is labor and regulation. But then there's currency. And we were talking about currency. And well, how does this currency thing work? Well, President Trump is talking about repegging the dollar to the gold standard or to a commodity because we saw in the last episode, President Nixon removed the linkage between paper and commodity, gold. He ended it. So the whole world is based on free-floating relationships of illusions. All these currencies are illusions. If everybody in the country woke up tomorrow and said, my dollar's worthless, it would be worthless. The only reason it has a value is because you believe it has a value. That's it. That's what's so pernicious about inflation. When hyperinflation kicks in because the debt gets too big because they keep expanding the money supply, pretty soon you need $400,000 to buy a loaf of bread. That happens over and over and over again in the world. One of the most recent cases was in Zimbabwe. They just printed themselves into complete financial collapse. And on a sidebar, we got a whole bunch of communist economists that are teaching your kids and my kids that that'll never happen again because central banks can print as much fiat currency as they want. It's called modern monetary theory, which is a lie because these people intend to destroy these economies so that they can come in with a new digital currency which can be used to control everybody's everything. That was their end game. That's why we're so in debt, okay? For all the people that say this stuff happened by accident, a $36 trillion accident is not an accident. It's very intentful. And these people are lying to us. They're just lying to us. Lie, lie, lie. The end game was for our currency to collapse. It would have collapsed under the Harris-Walz administration. They would have rushed in and said, oh, and when I say they, I mean the Fed, the people that caused the collapse, we're going to talk about that. People that caused the collapse would have rushed in with the answer, which is what Democrats do. They cause the problem, and then they give us a solution. That's not what I want. I want real problems solved permanently. So President Trump was elected to head this off, and he's doing it. He's talking about repegging the dollar to gold, remooring it, and this whole process of this budget is to balance our expenditures so that our income and our outgo are balanced so that we don't dig this hole any deeper. The old maxim, the best way to get out of a hole is quit digging it deeper. So you look at this budget, it's proposing a $4 trillion additional debt between now and 2034, 9 years. But we're missing the whole other aspect, which is the trade aspect. So back to trade. The country imports $4 trillion. I'm going to get back to that currency part too. Hold on. $4 trillion of goods come into this country every year. I import, again, because you, the consumer, don't want to pay for an American-made product. We've all been so brainwashed that the only thing that matters is price, not value, not the job of my neighbor. And I'm not criticizing. I am not criticizing. It's just reality. If you call me and you say, what are my options? Well, you can buy these 4 tires for $450, but you can buy the same tire made in America for $1,500. What you going to choose? What you going to choose? It's a problem. I mean, this is a problem. So President Trump can kill many birds with one stone here. If you tax those imports, the $4 trillion, at 20%, which I think is his end game, you raise an additional $800 billion a year. You get some savings in the Doge. Let's just call it $200 billion. So now you got an extra $1 trillion you didn't have before that's not in that budget. You do that till 2034, 9 years, and guess what you got? You got $9 trillion. So instead of losing $4 trillion of additional debt, you've actually paid down by $5 trillion. That's his plan. I hope, and I'm sure, because he's a good communicator, that he's communicating this to the members of the House Freedom Caucus. Because he's got a plan. And not only are you paying the debt down with these tariffs, you're incentivizing the onshoring of American manufacturing, which is going to take a long time. Nobody's going to run in here and put $1 billion into, let's say, New York until we get a broad bipartisan consensus of both parties that we're going to reindustrialize America, which, first of all, if the receipts are there and it turns out these people have been lying to us, hey, maybe they've been lying to us about climate change too, because it's the same people. The same people that have been robbing us, if it turns out it's true, they're innocent until they're proven guilty. But let's say they're proven guilty, like thousands of them, tens of thousands of them. Oh, you're the same people running around telling me the sky is falling? Why am I going to believe you about that when you've been robbing me? You're a crook. Get it? This is an epical moment in American history. That's why I'm saying get off the couch, get in the game. Let's rout these people. Let's rout them so that they are neutered permanently, or at least our children's children don't have to deal with it, right? So that's his plan, to tax all this. So let's just talk about, we're going to get to the currency, because now we're going to talk about the effects of tariffs. So on Monday, I opened up my newspaper, 25% on steel and aluminum. I bet you didn't notice that, Tanner, did you?
No.
No. Well, I noticed it because I import steel wheels from Vietnam. Steel wheels from Vietnam and Thailand are probably 75% of the steel wheel market. There's some that come out of Brazil. I don't know if there's any steel wheels for trucks that are manufactured in the United States. I'm sure there's some, but it's teeny tiny because you got a trucker who's barely surviving. When I say barely, barely. He's not going to pay $500 for an American-made wheel where he can buy one from Vietnam for $150. Just doesn't work that way because he's trying to run a business. That's industrial usage. And President Trump said, whoa, we're going to lose our steel industry 25% on everything, steel and aluminum. It's effective March 12th, 12:01 a.m. I actually have steel wheels in containers on boats heading to the United States because I sell steel wheels to one of the largest trucking companies in the country. I'm one of their key suppliers. It's great. Called them up yesterday, had a Zoom meeting. I said, hey, you got to pay more. They're professionals owned by, they're good people. They said, sure, it's not your fault. We'll pay it. Great. Now, they said to me, I assume, stay with me on this because now we're going to get into the nuts and bolts of BS. They said, we assume the price is going up 25%. I said, no, it's not. It's only going up 20%. Why is that? Because it's a 25% increase on my cost, not on your cost. And my cost includes ocean freight, the previous duty, and all the other costs associated with bringing those steel wheels from Vietnam to your door. So your price is really only going up about 20 points. Oh, that's very honest of you. Our other supplier said 25. Well, they're not as transparent as a Republican because Republicans are focused on anti-corruption. I'm not going to use a tariff to increase my profit margin. You see, when we understand the game, we cannot be abused. It's called caveat emptor. I'm sharing with you. Like I was looking in the newspaper. Oh, Minneapolis Tribune this morning. It's Valentine's Day. Do you know how many flowers are imported? Next Valentine's Day, they're going to be up 25%. No, they're not. Only if the flower importers are heartless because they make a margin. Their cost is going up. So they don't need to mark it up 25% from your cost. There's an importer, then it gets sold to a wholesaler, then a wholesaler sells it to a retailer, and the retailer sells it to you. Yeah, that'd be a big increase. But if everybody just marks up the product, what it costs them, it's not going to be 20%. It's going to be more like 15 or 16%. Okay, that's on the math side of the equation. Let's talk about the currency side of the equation where we went I was a little bit too circular.
It could have just been me. I'll give you, maybe the audience understood what you're saying.
You know what? It took me, I've been trading currency since 2008. And I'm still learning about it.
Yeah.
And you know what I found out? I have certified public accountants that come in and look at my cross-border currency work, and they don't understand it either. If I really wanted to do it, they have this company called BDO. Call BDO. Yeah, for $1,500, somebody an hour. For $1,500 an hour, yeah, somebody knows how to do it. Survival level for a small, I don't like that because it's pejorative, but for a small business, I can't afford $1,500 an hour for accounting. That's crazy. And when you get the local people that charge a reasonable rate, they have no idea how it works. We're still figuring it out. It's complex. So it's not you, because I know it's taken me 16 years, and I think I finally have it figured out. 16 years. And I've actually been in the pit trading. So here's the way it's going to work. And Elon Musk actually talked about this in the Oval Office when he was with President Trump. It ties into two issues. When you fix your economy by balancing your budget, two things happen immediately. Your currency appreciates. Why is that? Because people want to invest in your country. Right now, people don't want to invest in the United States. It looks like we're going to go broke. There's an ocean of dollars floating around out there. The money supply is crazy. But when we balance the budget, a Japanese company is going to say, we want to build a car manufacturing company in Minneapolis. So they have yen. They're not going to pay Minnesotans in yen. They have to convert their yen to dollars. When they buy those dollars, the supply of dollars shrinks because they've bought them. They've taken them off the market. They put them in their bank account. That makes the price of the dollar go up. Other currencies go down. As the dollar goes up, other currencies are worth less in comparison. But it's even more than that. Because if people can come build in the United States because President Trump makes an America first manufacturing policy, nobody wants to go build Mexico or Canada or Thailand or Indonesia or wherever all these people are going. He's demanding that the stuff gets built right here, which means that people aren't buying pesos. You can't pay Mexicans in dollars. You have to pay them in pesos. So when you open a factory in Mexico, you have to buy pesos to run your business. That drives up the price of the peso. It appreciates. But when you're not doing that, it devalues. It devalues, becomes worth less. So the dollar becomes worth more, and other world currencies, fiat currencies, become worth less. Not worthless, worth less. That offsets an import tariff. So when President Trump says, okay, we're going to raise the price at the border 20%, and that's what Scott Bessent and Howard Lutnick have telegraphed, that starting in April, it'll be 2.5% a month. 2.5% a month. For 8 months, it'll be 20% in November. Next year, in 2026, the government would get about $800 billion of tariff income. Wouldn't that be great? And it would incentivize companies to start thinking about bringing their manufacturing here to the United States. Beautiful, beautiful policy. You see all these globalists screaming about it because it's overturning their globalist dog bowl. It's America first. And then they threaten you. Look at President Trump, he's raising prices. No, inflation doesn't come from this process. Inflation comes from printing money to fill the hole when we have a deficit. If you buy tires from me today and you pay $500 for a set of 4 tires, and then you buy tires 4 years from now and it costs you $600, you're not even going to remember that you paid $500. You're buying that hard good once every 4 years. That doesn't create inflation. And furthermore, it's not going to go up as much as the tariffs are announced because it's overstated because of the math I've shared with you. The currencies of these other countries will devalue, which then will be a further offset. The price of energy is going to go down. Your tax rate's going to go down. You're going to have more money in your pocket. You might not even know that these hard goods that you buy very episodically. When's the last time you bought a television? When's the last time you bought a television?
I don't think I've ever actually bought a television.
That's
It's always just been passed down to me.
Great. So if the price of a television goes up 15 points, you might buy it. I don't remember the last time I bought a television. It's got to be 10 years.
I mean, I look at the prices and they're practically made to be disposable at this point. So
if they go up 15 points and
what's
you
the
buy a
big deal?
television these people are threatening us with our demise when it's the things we buy every day that matter, which is food, which is 85% domestically produced, and energy, which we're going to drill, and taxes is going to go down, and they're going to balance the budget. Hey, we're being fed a line of bull about what's going on here. We don't know what the outcomes are. We got to see how these cards come off the deck. It's really interesting. Now, the steel thing went on. There was no notice. Let's go back over this tariff history. There was a bunch of threats of tariffs when President Trump was running for office. And then everybody said, not everybody, I didn't, but all the people in the media said, he's just bluffing to get elected. He can't do that because, they're globalists. They're trying to brainwash him and you. They're not going to brainwash him. He just was run through the ringer for 9 years. He's tough as a $2 steak. He really doesn't care what some pundit has to say. Then he got elected, and the first thing he did is he said 25% on Mexico and Canada, and then it went away as quick as it showed up, and everybody said he backed down. No, he didn't back down. He's conditioning the market that there's going to be tariffs. Now, without any notice at all, he put 25% on steel and aluminum, and there was barely a whimper about it. Barely a whimper. Okay, great. Now, the next thing that's going to come up, probably as quick as today, President Trump is going to start talking about reciprocal tariffs. Could you put up this under the trade, the countries and the tariffs? These countries, their average tax started with Kenya at 15.83. India, a giant trading partner. I buy tires out of India. If we want to sell things into India, our tax that we pay there is 14.2%. Yet if the Indians want to come here, it's 2.72%. So President Trump is going to say to all these countries, you better frog up and fix this or else. I'm going to put tariffs on you. And here's my prediction. They're not going to do it. These countries are not going to lower their trade barriers. They really can't. They're not going to do it. It doesn't work domestically for those politicians. But President Trump's going to go into negotiation. Some countries, he's going to say, I tariff thee. Other countries will say, hey, we're going to make a deal, like Canada and Mexico. But tariffs is going to be everybody's mind. And he's bringing up that there needs to be some reciprocity. He's trying to reshape that giant flow of global trade that we looked at in the last podcast. You're going to hear this now. Reciprocal tariffs. It's going to get you used to the idea of tariffs. Because I believe, and now I'm being a fortune teller, and that's always difficult. It's just from what, because I read a lot, listen to what people say, and I'm actually in the room with some of these people, because you know I'm a political activist. It seems to me as if the end game is a universal tariff on everything coming in. Some of these countries could get hit a little bit harder because, you know, they're not being very kind to us. But overall, it looks to me like we're moving away. Our universal tariff right now is about 4%. It looks like we're going to 20. And when we go to 20% on $4 trillion, we're going to raise $800 billion a year, which is going to offset this $4 trillion additional debt, which is in this reconciliation bill that you're going to hear about this week. Will actually be paying the deficit and the debt. There will not be a deficit, and we'll be paying the debt down. So we've talked about that fiat currencies float. They float in relationship to how in demand that currency is. Currency is just another commodity. If people want to invest in the United States, the value of the dollar will increase. If people don't want to invest in Mexico, the value of the peso will decrease. That decrease, there's already $1 trillion of imports from Mexico. $1 trillion. So if the President Trump puts 20%, and then you know that that's really only about 15 when it comes to your pocket, and then you get a currency devaluation of 10%, really it's only going to go up about 5 points on stuff that you buy very episodically, like a car. How often do you buy a car? Maybe President Trump will even give you a rebate. Who knows? But these people are business people. They're not politicians. They're here to solve problems, not raise money off of them like Min GOP. We're not into anymore this BS of raising money off of problems. We, the American people, want our problems solved. Well, let's listen to a very famous guy as we close out the podcast, Fareed Zakaria, who is a pundit on CNN. He's very, very well known. He attended Yale University, where he graduated in 1986. He's a little bit younger than me. He was a member of the Scroll and Key Society, one of the 3 secret societies at Yale. I wonder what they teach these young people at the Scroll and Key Society. Well, I'm going to tell you what they teach them. They teach them magic. They don't teach them Catholicism or Protestantism there. They certainly don't teach them Judaism. They teach them what's called magic, M-A-G-I-C-K. Magic is a way to control resources and also to control your own internal resources, to link up with forces and powers that have nothing to do with Jesus Christ. That's what they teach them there. So Fareed's very popular, got a great job. He's a globalist extraordinaire. And I would like you, Tanner, to play this clip of Fareed. And I'm actually going to make fun of him as we go through the clip and end tonight's podcast.
But first, here's my take. It's been a head-spinning week for American foreign policy, with tariffs against Canada and Mexico dramatically announced and then suddenly postponed. USAID was gutted, and President Trump said he wants the U.S. to take over Gaza. The most revealing lens through which to look at all this might not be Donald Trump's pronouncements, but rather those of his aides and supporters. The tariff tantrum suggested that foreign leaders...
First of all, could you make it just a little louder for me? And then Fareed called this a tariff tantrum, as if Donald Trump is a child. You know, Tanner's got a young kid. Your daughter had tantrums, right?
Yeah.
Right. Donald Trump is not having a tantrum. He's conditioning the markets, not you and me, the markets, because he doesn't want to put on these tariffs and the market tanks 50%. That looks bad. No, he's conditioning the market that tariffs are coming. Fareed's got a PhD. That does not mean he's smart. It means he's good at passing tests. And he was in this secret society, so there's probably other people at CNN that were also in that society, so he's got a great job. Plus, he's not bad looking, and he's got a great accent. And look how nice he looks in blue. Let's continue.
Right, real quick. I think he looks like an AI-generated Robert Downey Jr., the guy that plays Iron Man.
You think so?
Look, kind of looks like an off.
Look at the look on his face. A little bit scary. Let's continue.
Are becoming skilled at handling Trump. They mollify him with token concessions, allow him to declare victory, and then return to business as usual. The concessions that Mexico and Canada made were either small bore or policies that they were already pursuing. Mexico agreed to send thousands of troops to the border at the Biden administration's request, and are now doing the same for Trump. In the case of Canada, Trump's own statement notes that Canada was agreeing to implement its border plan, much of which had been announced over a month ago. Some conservative commentators pointed out the obvious. In the words of a Wall Street Journal editorial, Trump...
Stop, please. Wall Street Journal, globalist extraordinaire publication owned by Rupert Murdoch. When I see people reading the Wall Street Journal, I know they're gum-dipped. Gum-dipped. And why do I know it? Because I used to read it every day. I used to read it every day in the Economic Times. You know, I was flying. I was taking, 8 international trips a year back in my globalist heyday. I used to love to be, I'd sit up first class, business class. They'd bring me my Wall Street Journal and my Macallan, and I'd sit there and act like I was somebody, and I'd read the Wall Street Journal. It's a complete propaganda rag for globalism. So, of course, they're going to present to their readers that President Trump blinked. Let's continue.
The Fox anchor Laura Ingraham implied that the president caved to huge negative reaction from markets.
Stop,
saying,
please. Laura Ingraham. If we have any Laura Ingraham fans in the audience, that's great. I never liked Laura Ingraham, ever. Not one time. Not, why should I rip on Laura Ingraham? She's on Fox News, speaks for itself. Owned by Rupert Murdoch, a globalist organization. Please continue.
I'm not too impressed about the concessions from Canada. Canadian media reactions were similar. Canada's CTV News published an article with the headline, "Canada takes a stand and Donald Trump blinks."
Stop, please. Canada takes a stand. It's laughable to think that Canada took a stand. I do business in Canada. I own a business there. The entire population of Canada and their entire economy is smaller than California. Yeah, they can stand up. They're midgets. Sorry, I got Canadian friends that watch the broadcast. I got one of my best friends in Canada. I talk about him all the time. My brother Aaron in Winnipeg. I love this guy. We're brothers. but he knows. In fact, it was hilarious. When we first started talking, he was deeply liberal, but Justin Trudeau has convinced him to be a conservative, which, this populism is breaking out all over the world because these people were selling a hokum story and smart people figure it out. Please continue.
The country's satirical show, 22 Minutes, has a Donald Trump look-alike declaring victory.
I did the impossible. I made peace with Canada and ended the unjust trade war that I started. I'm signing this. This executive order, I did not lose, but I totally won the trade war order.
Of course, from J.D. Vance to Mike Johnson, Republicans fell over themselves to praise the stunning negotiating powers of President Trump. The Trump effect is in full force, Johnson posted. At this rate of achievement, wrote Elon Musk, not only should President Donald Trump be on Mount Rushmore, I want to personally work the chisel. With the abrupt dismantling of USAID, Trump's supporters scrambled to adjust. Secretary of State Marco Rubio quickly blasted the agency, saying it was out of control and unresponsive. This was the same agency that he had repeatedly posted in favor of over the years, written about in his book with pride and admiration, and recently recommended funding increases to President Biden.
Please stop. Okay. Marco Rubio, globalist. Lindsey Graham also praised USAID. I played that clip on my radio show this week. These people are globalists. This is the whole point of why I'm asking you to come to the meeting at 9 p.m. tomorrow night, Eastern Time, 8 p.m. Central, at Dan Schultz 2. President Trump is surrounded by globalists. He knows it. Why are they there? Because you and I I'm in now, but before 2020, I wasn't in. There's no way of getting these globalists out of the Republican Party unless the citizens go in and control the nomination, endorsement, and primary process. They're going to be there forever. What is President Trump going to do? I mean, he's got to deal with. There are not enough nationalists there might be 10 American citizens that are actually in, like Royce White. Royce White is actually an American citizen that is trying to get elected who actually cares about our country. He's not on the payroll. He's not robbing and stealing. And they did everything to smear the man, okay? They don't want you and me in this process. I am hated in Minnesota by the establishment. They hate me. They say things about me that are awful, just awful, before I even get to the anti-Semitic part of it, which they specialize in. So, this guy is Fareed. He's highlighting the former comments of globalists that, remember when Donald Trump used to call Marco Rubio little Marco Rubio? I mean, he's got to take the players that are on the field. We can get better players on the field when you join your local party. Let's continue.
The pattern is now familiar and was followed after Trump's Gaza announcement. Those who had long supported Trump's determination to end America's military interventions cheered when he announced he would take over Gaza, send in troops if necessary, displace 2 million Palestinians to neighboring countries, and stay in Gaza for long-term ownership. Kayleigh McEnany responded with this on Fox News.
President Trump is playing four-dimensional chess. You all are playing checkers.
Later that day, Trump officials
Stop,
began...
please. I know Kayleigh McEnany. She is very bright. She's very close to Donald Trump. She was a press secretary in the previous administration. She's sharp. And I don't know what Donald Trump is doing with Gaza, in Iran, and Israel. I don't. And it's a concern to me. However, Donald Trump likes to make people's heads blow off their shoulders for drill. After all, he was indicted all over the country. He almost went to jail. He was willing to go to jail for the rest of his life to not be defeated by these folks like Fareed. And someone whistled around right by his head, killing some folks right behind him. When you get that kind of life experience, driving these people nuts, becomes an imperative. And I do that. There's people I don't get along with. I just say stuff just for drill because I know their heads are going to blow off their shoulders. And I think that's great because they're not very nice. Let's put this on a scale. You tried to kill me, speaking for President Trump, and I'm messing with your brain. He's not trying to kill these people. He's just making them very anxious. I think it's cute. Let's continue.
Taking back key aspects of the president's plan, as did Trump himself. If you don't understand all this, you haven't played four-dimensional chess. Donald Trump's White House is now a court, and his courtiers scurry around aware that the mercurial monarch might change his mind at any time. TikTok is terrible can suddenly become TikTok is great.
Okay, let's stop. In my business, my staff, I got some key staff. I got some close people. Tanner's a key staff now. He's gonna say this to me. He's gonna look at me and say, "You told me to do the exact opposite thing 3 days ago." I know you're gonna say it to me. Because when you're in business and you own a business, like Donald Trump owns a business, you're not an ideologue. Business is very pragmatic. You're looking for a solution. You probe the line. You're trying to find a way to succeed. You're not trying to continue problems. You're trying to solve problems. And sometimes, like the Middle East, it's been a problem for, I don't know, since forever. And he's trying to find a way to solve it. And he doesn't know how to do it. He's looking for a solution. And all these people over there got their own ideas, their own histories, and their own weapons. And he's trying to get this thing worked out. So he's trying different ideas. And, because he's president, he talks openly in public because he's not running a secret society at the level that all the rest of these clowns have done it. Now, there's a secret society there. There is. There's secrets. But he's releasing secrets. So Fareed can't get this. Fareed wants some stuffed shirt who says the same thing every day for, 50 years. That way, nothing ever gets fixed. Let's continue.
I want to add something real quick to his claim about the TikTok thing.
Yes.
Trump, he did say it was an issue, but then Oracle took over, and then there was a third party that ran the servers for TikTok in the United States to completely disconnect it from Chinese servers.
Yeah.
So then Trump's problem with it was solved. And that's why he has the opinion of TikTok's okay now, because he knows how the server is working. So it is so dishonest to say like, it's bad for him, but now it's good. No, he had a problem with it, and that problem got fixed. So now he's okay with it.
I didn't know that. That is a very interesting insight that I've gained from you that is based on your technical awareness of what was happening. That's great.
Yeah.
Did
Oracle
anybody
was the
else know
company.
that? Hey, everybody can put in the live chat, thanks, Tanner. If you knew it, great. I'd never heard that before. That was very helpful. Thank you.
Glad I can help. Let's continue.
It reminds one of the court of Henry VIII, the monarch who went from being the greatest defender of the Catholic Church to a vicious opponent because he wanted a divorce that the Pope would not sanction. One man who refused to play the game, Sir Thomas More, had his head chopped off. The reason Trump forces aides and supporters to say things that they know are false is to enforce a regime in which loyalty is paramount.
Let's stop for a second. Let's stop. This is not business as usual. This is why ask is not the right word. I'm pleading with you to get involved in politics. We're in a death struggle. We're not out of the woods. I didn't even get to the Fed, which, we don't have time. But I'm just going to tell you, for example, if they keep these interest rates right, where they are right now, the economy could tank. It keeps the interest rates high in the short term. That makes the long-term refinance of the debt higher. The Fed can destroy this entire project. So when you're fighting, and then there's a block of countries that have been aligned against the United States, not against you and me, against the globalists, what Putin calls the Anglo-Saxon cartel. When you have this kind of fighting, and then we see the Democrats are calling for violence, we're not out of the woods. And when you're in a fight, if you've ever been actually in a fight, it's not business as usual. It's just not. Of course, Fareed, look at that pretty face. You think Fareed's ever had his beak smacked real hard so his eyes welled up with water and he wanted to start crying and go home to mommy? It doesn't look like he's ever taken a punch. I could be wrong. He could be a stone killer. But he doesn't affect me as the kind of guy that's ever gotten in the ring with anybody. So he doesn't understand maybe that in a fight, you got to get aligned. And that's why I'm asking Minnesotans in every state, let's quit this backbiting. Let's unify. And here's how we do it. When you and I get in politics in our states, the rhinos in those states, the professionals, when they fear that they're going to lose their job in show business, they're suddenly going to become just like us. We won't even recognize them. And that's okay, because they're going to vote for the kind of change that'll make our country great and whole again. Let's finish Fareed.
Overriding facts, overriding your long-held convictions. Now, this might seem like an amusing spectacle, but there is a real cost. In the case of USAID, it will translate into death and despair for millions of the poorest people on the planet. On trade, it remains a mystery as to why Trump singled out Canada.
Stop, please. I'm sorry we're running over. You know, they're bringing out the sick babies to cover up the alleged massive intergalactic fraud. And Canada is, Justin Trudeau is a young leader of the World Economic Forum. His number two, Chrystia Freeland, whose grandfather was a Nazi, she resigned to take over after, if she can get elected. She is a trustee of the World Economic Forum. Canada's not our friend just because they look like us and speak English. And I'm going to tell you, I've been up there. They're not Americans. They got their own game going on, and it's not very pro-USA. They're very leftist up there. Let's go on.
2024 fiscal year, less than 10% of migrant encounters happened at the Canadian border, and just 0.2% of fentanyl seizures occurred there. America runs a smaller trade deficit with Canada.
And you know what? Just because there was 0.2% of the fentanyl busts were there, maybe they didn't bust anybody. That's a very crappy statistic. Very crappy. Doesn't mean anything. You know, there's lies, damn lies, and statistics. Let's continue.
China or Vietnam. In fact, if you put aside Canadian crude oil, the U.S. sells more to Canada than it buys from it. But the effect is clear. For Canada, the U.S. is turning into an undependable ally, and it will try to lessen its reliance on America and search for new markets and friends, from Britain to China. The largest effect, though, is on American democracy. The scholar Francis Fukuyama has noted that the history of modern government has been a steady movement away from patrimonial rule, the rule of a single strongman to benefit his family and friends, towards rule by institutions and rules and norms. He notes that in the United States now, we are seeing the return to patrimonial rule.
Oh, stop, please. You know what? This is a complete, first of all, you say patrimonial. There's Queens. That's called matrimonial rule. No, this is not going on. The rule of law has been perverted by who? The lawyers that administer it. The institutions, if it is proven that they're rife with fraud and abuse, they're corrupted by those same lawyers. What Donald Trump is doing is he's peeling back the onion so we get a look at what's under the skin. If they don't find anything, he's done. If they bring the receipts, the Democrats done, and we got to refresh these institutions. That's enough of Fareed. We get the point. These people are off in a zone right now they've never been in. They've gone from the top of the mountain in control of everything, controlling the narrative, controlling people's minds, to who are you people? Why do we even listen to you? You suck. Same thing goes here in Minnesota. Got the same effort going on here. And I want to give kudos to the Minnesota Republican Party because it's growing a spine and a set of balls. They're actually investigating the same fraud and abuse here in Minnesota government. And if they find it, it's going to bring down the whole house of cards here, which, you know, we'll see. Got to get the receipts. I want to thank everybody for joining. I want to remind everybody, we're acting childish. This is not childish times. This is a time for action. This is a time for serious, mature behavior. If you love your freedom, get involved. Help me. Go to Target and buy your tires. Go to the Free People store. Please, we are trying to get something done together as a community. Repost the links. Look for the shorts. Have a great weekend. We're going to go out with one of my favorites just because it's my show. I love Bob Marley. We're going to go out with I Shot the Sheriff, but I didn't shoot the deputy. That brings up kind of the vagaries of the rule of law. Have a great weekend. Thank you very much.
Have a good night, everybody.
Didn't shoot no deputy. It was I who shot the sheriff, but I didn't shoot no deputy. It goes like this, all around in my hometown. They are trying to track me down. They say they want to bring I in guilty for the life of a deputy, for the life of a deputy now. But I say, if I am guilty, I will pay. I shot the sheriff, but I swear it was in self-defense. It was I who shot the sheriff, and they say it is a capital offense. You see, Sheriff John Brown always says I. For what? I don't know now. Every time I plant a seed, he say, kill them before they grow. He say, kill them before they grow now. And so, bye, I shot the sheriff. Lord, I didn't shoot the deputy. It was I who shot the sheriff, but I didn't shoot no deputy. Freedom came my way one day now, and I started out of town, yeah. Then all of a sudden I saw Sheriff John Brown. He was aiming to shoot I down. So oh yes, I shot him down. And I said, if I am guilty, I will pay. 'Cause I shot the sheriff, but I swear it was in self-defense.